책에서 그 소개된 전사형 리더들은 그 때로는 마키아벨리적인 전략과 폭력을 좀 정당화하기도 했습니다. 최근에 한국에서 논란이 된 그 계엄령 문건 사태를 좀 그런 맥락에서 만약에 해석을 한다면 이것을 좀 정당한 전사적 리더십의 범주로 볼 수 있을지 아니면 좀 위험한 권력 남용의 사례로 봐야 될지 어떻게 생각하시나요?
Well, in all honesty, I don't think that Machiavelli would have approved of the decision that was made in terms of utilizing martial law to obtain goals in a democratic system. So Machiavelli wasn't just focused on the use of force. He was focused very much on strategy and what would work well for a leader in achieving power and maintaining power. And in that sense, the former president is a failure in the Machiavellian sense, because Machiavelli was looking at how to succeed and how to thrive politically. And I think that this decision showed an inability to understand the full extent of Korean history. Because if even I, who am not Korean, know enough about Korean history to have guessed and predicted that this move would fail. Democracy in Korea is not something that Koreans take for granted. Because enough people in Korea know that democracy was a very hard-fought thing in Korea. And to get democracy was very difficult. And so people do not want to lose that democracy. And when they saw this happening, what you were referring to, many people immediately thought of what was going on in the country before democracy, when there was authoritarianism and a kind of military dictatorship. And people just didn't want to go back to that.
네, 그리고 책에서 이 반역자 유형의 리더는 체제를 흔들되 또 무너뜨리기보다는 안에서 변화를 꾀하는 존재로 좀 그려지더라고요. 그런데 한국 엘리트층에는 이런 리더가 좀 유독 좀 드물다고 느껴져요. 왜 한국 사회는 체제 안에 이 반역자가 나오기 힘든 걸까요?
Well, I think it's difficult. This requires a bit of a longer, more complex answer. I think that South Korea is very haunted by its past. The Korean people are still living in the Cold War. So one example of this is the fact that the Korean Peninsula is still where the Cold War is actually going on. It's the last conflict of the Cold War, and it's an ongoing conflict. And it's a dangerous conflict, and it's a conflict that fills people with great anxiety. In addition to that, for the Korean people, there is a trauma and a tragedy. The Korean people are divided into North and South, but it's the same people. It's the Korean people. And this is a very, very difficult thing. It's like a family being divided. So these are deep psychological scars. And it has an effect on how people see political issues, economic issues, and many social issues. So it's in a way, Koreans are really trapped by their own history.
전 세계적으로 팬덤 정치나 아니면 포퓰리즘 리더십이 좀 위기를 좀 초래하고 있는데 여기에 대해서는 좀 어떻게 생각하시나요?
Yes, I think you're right. I think that democratic systems are often threatened by populist, you can call them populist politicians or demagogues of different sort. And these are leaders or these are figures who often exploit problems that exist in society for political purposes. But they don't address the real problems that people have. And because people have problems that persist over time, they will often turn to leaders who promise them things and blame others for their problems. So the best way that democracies can protect themselves is by making sure that people have good lives in society. That way they don't need to turn to bad leaders or demagogic politicians. And we have historical precedents for this. So we know that before World War II, there was economic crisis and society was suffering. And people in Europe and other places turned to fascist or populist leaders and they destroyed their democracies. But there were other places in which democratic leaders were able to provide for the people and avoid such a fate. So one place like this was the United States, actually, which during the Great Depression, the Great Economic Crisis, had President Roosevelt, who did policies that protected the people and avoided the collapse of democracy.